Why having a multi-channel approach is going to be key for your short-term rental success. Welcome, my beautiful people. Fernando David here. And in this video, we're going to talk about why it's important to have a multi-channel approach to your short-term rental business. I've been preaching and been talking about going multi-channel for a couple of years now. And the reason I've been preaching that is because if your business, and I wrote some stuff down, so I'm going to be looking at my notes throughout this video. The reason why it's so important that you have a multi-channel approach is because if you don't, then you are putting your business in jeopardy. I mentioned this before, and that is if you are only advertising on one platform, and let's use the Airbnb platform, then A, you really don't have a business. You really work for Airbnb because you are reliant on Airbnb. You're stuck to their policies and procedures. You're stuck to the algorithm that they have. And if you get into any kind of trouble, or worse yet, if Airbnb goes bankrupt, they shut down, they're not in business anymore, neither are you. The short-term rental game has been around way before any of these platforms existed, and many of us have been very successful without the platforms. But these platforms do help, and they're going to help in many different ways, and I'm going to get into how they help and going into more reasons as to why you should be multi-channel. The first one is your ability to reach or extend your reach in the short-term rental game. Using multi-channel, you're going to be able to expand your market outside of just a specific platform. Let me give you a couple of examples, and we're going to use 3 platforms. We're going to use Airbnb, Vrbo, and Booking.com, which they happen to be the most popular platforms and the most used platforms to date. But they all target and are used by different markets, different groups, different demographics. So for example, Airbnb is used mainly by people that are 35 years or younger. They're also used mainly by people looking for cheap accommodations. They're looking for people that, especially in the very beginning of Airbnb, there were people that are looking for something outside of the normal 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. If you have a unique property like a container home, a cabin, a tree house, a Winnebago, like us, some mobile homes, then the Airbnb platform is a good platform to be on because you're going to track that market. Let's move over to Vrbo. Vrbo tends to attract more families. It caters, and the platform itself has single family homes. So if you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, that is where someone is more likely going to be looking for or getting on to look for that type of accommodations, because Vrbo does not allow or doesn't accept like rooms. Like you can't live in and rent out a room and advertise on Vrbo. You can't have a tree house and advertise on Vrbo. And the clientele for Vrbo tend to be older. And again, like I mentioned, they tend to be more family orientated when they use the Vrbo platform. Now, Booking.com is unique because Booking.com, especially several years back, the majority of people that used Booking were either from outside of the US. Booking.com didn't become popular in the US until recently, but it's always been popular in Europe and South America. In fact, in South America, in particular Colombia, which is the market that we're in, Booking.com is the #1 platform there, as well as Europe. So by going multi-channel, you're going to be able to expand your reach and be more exposed to different markets. Reason number 2 is using these platforms to attract more direct bookings. If you follow my channel, I've been preaching direct bookings forever. You should have your own website, and you should have the ability to create or attract your own guests, meaning having them book directly through you and not through a platform. When you're multi-channel, it's going to give you the ability to do that because there are platforms out there outside of the big 3 that I just mentioned. There's platforms out there, they won't book the guests for you. They'll just direct the guests to you. So having that ability to book that guest directly is going to be huge. In addition to that, when you have your own platform, you can can create your own marketing plan so that they can book directly through you using that extended reach that you get from being multi-channel. Number three, it ties into those first two, and that's increased visibility. When you're multi-channel, you're going to be out there. By being out there, you have more eyes and you have that increased visibility. So the multi-channel approach allows you to be more visible so that you can either use those other platforms to attract more guests or use those platforms to get those initial eyes on you, and then you can target those so that you can direct them to your website and get more direct bookings. Number four is going to be the ability to target specific markets. I briefly touched on that when I discussed Airbnb, Vrbo, and Booking, but there are other platforms out there that are specific to a specific either demographic or a specific group. For example, we're big on targeting and marketing the nomad community. There's platforms specifically for the nomad community. There's platforms specifically for the LGBT community. There's platforms specific for women. So by being in these specific platforms, you can target or create a niche for yourself within a specific group or community. Again, I'm big on the nomad community. I'm also big on the remote worker. Hence why all of my properties have stuff that touch the nomad community or remote worker is looking for and is attracted to. Having a desk, a workstation, or an office and high-speed Wi-Fi is one of those amenities that are necessary and critical if you want to target that specific market. But let's go over to other markets. For example, there's a website that specifically targets women. So if you have a property that is geared more towards women, then go ahead and use that platform and target that. If you live in a community, if you have and you want to be more LGBT friendly, then you can target that. But having that target marketing is only available if you are multi-channel. Next is going to be, and this ties into those four areas that I just touched on, and that is enhancing your brand. I mentioned branding is the subject for a video in and of itself, but I want you to understand that creating a brand, just like having a direct booking website, is critical for your success. So you should have your own logo and really focus on branding yourself, your property, and your company. Now, as you grow, that branding is going to be more important, but being multi-channel, like I mentioned, increases your visibility, which increases your brand awareness. So having that multi-channel approach increases and enhances your brand awareness. It's really important for you, especially in the long run, because you want that brand recognition. The last thing I'm going to talk about is, and it's very important, is by when you're multi-channel, and I briefly touched on this in the first tip that I gave you, it allows you to be more flexible and allows you to adapt to markets. When you are stuck to one channel, you have no flexibility. Even if you have two channels, let's say Vrbo and Airbnb, there is no flexibility there. There's no adaptability there. Again, you're beholden to that platform. You're beholden to their policies, their procedures, their algorithm. That's what you have. There is no flexibility there. But when you're multi-channel, then you can be very flexible. You're not, and your business is not reliant on just one channel. So you can adapt and change to markets. Again, it's something that I've been preaching for a while. And if you've been in this business long enough, you know this short-term rental game has changed dramatically year over year in the last 3 to 4 years. So being multi-channel allows you to be flexible and allows you to adapt to these ever-changing markets. Now, here's what's important about being multi-channel, right? You need to be very well organized. You need to really understand each platform, and then you need to have a PMS system to handle these channels. Meaning that having at the bare minimum a channel manager that's going to control your calendar. It's very difficult, if not almost impossible, if you don't have that. So that's the drawback of being multi-channel, is that you really need to have a PMS system, or the bare minimum, like I just mentioned, you need to have a channel manager. Anyway, I really firmly believe that this is critical, and I'm going to always encourage you to be multi-channel. If you found this information useful, please do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. When you look at my analytics, I get a lot of eyeballs, but most are not subscribers to the channel. Subscribe, it really helps us. Again, hitting that like button helps us as well. Follow me on Instagram because that's where I interact the most with my followers. And if you want to donate to the channel, or you find the channel valuable, or you want to have a one-on-one conversation with me, then buy me a coffee. The link's below. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.